Could this be the future of aero road bike design? Ribble has announced today the Ultra, which aims to be the most aerodynamically advanced road bike frame set in the world. It's a new aero road bike with an aggressively aero-optimised frame set and a novel integrated handlebar design like nothing we've ever seen before. Ribble says the wake-generating bulges on the tops of the handlebar manipulate the airflow over the rider to reduce aerodynamic drag compared to a standard aero handlebar, and Ribble claims the gains are significant. Now, I think you can agree that this is a pretty exciting step forward, and I'm sure you're already reaching for the comment section as I speak. But I also have questions of my own, so I met up with Andy Smallwood, CEO of Ribble, to chat more in depth about the reasons behind the design. Please stay tuned for that. But first, here are the 5 key features you need to know about the Ribble Ultra. And, of course, a little reminder to subscribe to BikeRadar's YouTube channel so you don't miss out on any of the latest cycling tech news. Number 1. The Ribble Ultra is a brand new, full-fat, disc brake only aero road bike from British brand Ribble. Number 2. The Ultra has been designed from the ground up and has a no-holds-barred aero frame set and a handlebar that's unlike anything we've ever seen before. Number 3. The Ultra Bar handlebar uses bulges around the stem called wake generators, which manipulate the airflow over the rider for an overall drag reduction for the rider plus bike system. Number 4. In total, the Ultra SLR is claimed to save 75.1 seconds over 40 kilometers versus Ribble's Endurance SLR disc road bike. Number 5. And finally, as always with Ribble, prices are competitive, starting at just £3,199 for an Ultra SL build with Shimano 105 and carbon aero wheels, although this model doesn't actually come with the Ultra Bar. As I mentioned, the brief was to make the most aerodynamically advanced frame set in the world, and Ribble has invested 3 years of intensive CFD, which stands for Computational Fluid Dynamics, wind tunnel, and crucially, real-world development. The result is the Ultra, which has deep truncated aerofoil tubes throughout, high levels of integration, and is spec'd with aerodynamic wheels and components on all builds. As for how fast it is, as I mentioned earlier, Ribble says it's 75.1 seconds quicker over 40 kilometers than its Endurance SLR disc road bike. And at this point, you might be thinking, well, I'm not a pro though, and is that even that big a saving? Well, to ensure it's as good for amateurs as it is for the pros, Ribble says the Ultra has been aero tested at 2 speeds. Firstly, at 22 miles per hour or 35 kilometers per hour, and secondly, at 29 miles per hour or 47 kilometers per hour. And interestingly, the time gains are supposedly more significant at the slower speeds. But more on that later. If you're interested in knowing how fast a road bike is compared to a time trial bike, check out the video on the card above. Myself and Jack went head to head to see which was fastest on our local TT course, and it's a video you don't want to miss. That's enough of me. Let's head over to our studio to find out more about the Ultra from the CEO of Ribble Cycles. So Andy, thank you so much for joining us. Tell us a bit about the design process of the bike. Why is Ribble making an aero bike now?
So the reason why we're making an aero bike right now is that we know through our previous experience of product development and R&D that there's significant gains to be had for a rider, not just at the professional level, but more of a kind of everyday rider to be had from aerodynamics. So yeah, so it made total sense for us to really kind of invest our time in exploring deeper into what gains can be had.
Tell us a little bit about the design philosophy behind the bike.
Designing it around bike and rider working together in harmony. You can design a very slippery, very aerodynamic bicycle, but when you put the rider on, the enhanced airflow across the bike can actually have a detrimental impact on the full total package of bike and rider together. So really making sure that we absolutely optimise it behind bike and rider together.
What is it about the Ribble Ultra that differentiates it from kind of other aero bikes that are already on the market?
Every tube profile has been optimised. It's not just a case of taking an aerofoil and truncating it. We've looked at the actual shape of that aerofoil. We've looked at the chord position. We've looked at the size of the trailing edge. And all of this has been optimised to make sure that the tube profile works as efficiently as possible across a full yaw sweep. So it'll perform in real world conditions. The other thing on this bike is that we've paid a lot of attention to the handlebar. And it's probably the element that has the most impact on the rider, which is directly downstream.
We've seen this handlebar, and obviously it's very different to anything else on the market. Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so when we first set out to design our handlebar, we actually developed a handlebar which is very, very aerodynamic when it's tested as bike only. But as soon as we put a rider on it, we lost that gain. So we started to explore, can we create something on the handlebar that's actually going to improve the overall aerodynamics of the bike and rider together by essentially creating a wake upstream, which will then have a benefit on the rider.
And that's not the kind of only detail behind the handlebars as well. I believe they're slightly narrower, also designed that they don't need bar tape. There's texture drops and also shape drops as well. And you don't have a round section for clamping the levers on. So tell us a little bit more about that, because that is something new and interesting.
We looked at traditional handlebars, and the one thing that struck us was that every single handlebar since day one of bicycle design all the way through to the present day is round in shape and is of a set diameter. And we thought that, well, that's very restrictive from a bike design point of view. If there's a way in which we can remove that metal band and we can attach the brake lever directly to the handlebar, that basically gives us complete free rein to design the drop of the handlebar and the section behind the brake lever exactly how we want to. So we developed our own direct mount brake lever, which attaches directly to the handlebar, and we've therefore really explored how far we can push that handlebar shape. So we get really nice airflow across the hand on the hoods. Also we get very clean airflow off the handlebar onto the hand when you're on the drops. But also crucially, we can ergonomically design the drop section of the handlebar to be much more comfortable and give the rider better control when both in the saddle and out the saddle as well.
Crucially though, it does still work with standard brake levers. You don't need custom brake levers, do you?
No, it's you utilise conventional brake levers. Yeah, Campag, SRAM, Shimano, everything's compatible. It just fits directly to the handlebar versus requiring that metal band.
And with the frame, is this a bike for the kind of pros who are riding 45, 50 kilometers an hour, or have you taken into consideration riders like me? Maybe we ride around at maybe 20 miles an hour or something if we're lucky. And is it practical for an amateur rider?
I still feel like I'm competitive and still like to press on when I'm riding, but I'm not averaging pro speeds. So we purposely designed the bike to be just as good at 29 miles an hour pro speed as it is at 20 to 22 miles an hour. And if anything, with this bike, we actually see a bigger benefit at the slower speed than the faster speed. So when I'm riding, more likely to be on the hoods than on the drops. So one of the benefits of the new handlebar design is that it's optimized around the hood position as much as it is around the drop position. So yeah, so whilst yes, it's a performance bike, it's also designed very much for the real world as well.
So let's talk a little bit about some of the details. Now, the Downtube in particular is really interesting because it starts off kind of very narrow, with a narrow aerofoil tube at the top, but then broadens out significantly as we come around the kind of bottle area and down into the bottom bracket. Tell us a little bit about that. Why have you done that?
So the Downtube is a very complex tube, not just from an aerodynamic point of view, but also from a stresses and strength point of view. So at the upper end of the Downtube, we have to be very careful and we have to look in a lot of detail around how the airflow interacts across the fork and the head tube. So we've actually optimised that tube profile to be very efficient from an airflow point of view across the fork, across the head tube, and then into the down tube. What we've then done is the lower section of the down tube then has a different set of forces applied to it. So it blends into the bottom bracket area. That's where the stiffness and the strength of the frame comes from. So it has to be very stiff and very strong. What we've also done is, in part of our philosophy of making this bike absolutely designed for real world, it's actually faster with a water bottle than without a water bottle. So the shape is quite complex from the top of the down tube all the way to the bottom of the Downtube, because there's different forces applied to it and different aerodynamic requirements from the head tube into the bottom bracket.
And with the fork, you've done something quite clever to hide the disc brake caliper from the wind, and obviously that's often a problem because disc brakes aren't necessarily as aero, but if you can hide it, is that a measurable gain?
Yeah, so the two things about the disc brake is that, yes, if we're looking at bike versus bike, the same bike has been designed around a caliper brake and a disc brake. The disc brake generally will be slightly worse from an aerodynamic perspective, because with this bike we actually set out for the bike to be disc brake specific, which meant that we could change the shape of the fork at the area where a conventional caliper would have been, which again is actually better than it would have been if we'd have tried to enable it to be compatible with a caliper brake. What we also know is that the disc brake does actually create drag at the axle of the wheel, so by positioning the disc brake shrouded in essence, we did actually get a measurable gain. So yes, in answer to your question, yeah, we did see a measurable gain by hiding the disc brake.
I think as part of the development, you've also given consideration to this platform as a kind of triathlon bike as well. So are there specific components available to kind of convert it from a road into more of a triathlon bike?
Yeah, so we know it lends itself well to a rider who's riding on their own, who's looking at where performance absolutely counts. It's all about every second counts. So we've got a version that which comes with the mini clip-on handlebar, which enables a triathlete or short distance time trialist to be able to get into a more aerodynamic position. Also comes with an inline seat post with adjustable cradle on the top as well, to mean that they can bring the seat post, the saddle further over the bottom bracket, to again give them a much more optimised TT kind of position. So it's it would be great for a more technical, more demanding triathlon course, for example.
I hope you found that chat with Andy as insightful as I did, but if you have any more questions or comments, don't forget to share them in the comments below, and check out my written story on the new bike on BikeRadar.com. You can check the link in the description for that. So, onto the builds, pricing, weight, and of course, that all-important availability. Firstly, there's the top tier Ultra SLR, and then there's the cheaper Ultra SL. Both versions are disc brake only. Sorry, #save the rim brake fans. We know you're out there watching this though, so don't forget to comment below and let us know what you think of that decision. Now, Ribble is coy on the exact differences between the two versions. Both are said to be built with Toray T1000/T800 carbon fibre, and the frameset molds for each bike are the same. But Ribble has confirmed that there's a 150 gram weight difference between each version. A painted size medium Ultra SL frame is claimed to weigh 1,200 grams, while an equivalent Ultra SLR frame comes in at 1,050 grams. This results in Ultra SLR builds starting from 7.6 kilos at the top end of the pricing scale, which is competitive with the current crop of aero road bikes. One obvious difference is that while all SLR builds get the innovative Ultra Bar, the SL builds are spec'd with Ribble's Level 5 integrated aero handlebar. Prices start at an attractive £3,199 for an Ultra SL build with Shimano 105 R7020 and level carbon wheels. But if you want the Ultra Bar, prices for the Ultra SLR start at £3,899 for a build with Shimano Ultegra R8020 and Mavic wheels. They rise to £7,299 for a build with Shimano Dura Ace R9170 Di2 and Envy Foundation 65 carbon wheels. As Andy mentioned, there's also the triathlon specific Ultra SLR build, which costs £6,599 and comes with a triathlon specific seat post and components, and Ribble's wonderfully bonkers tri-spoke carbon wheels. As a time trialist, I have a soft spot for a tri-spoke wheel, and I have to admit, I'd quite like to try this one out. So Ribble, as soon as you have stock, please send one over to me. Full build details can be found on Ribble's website, and exact specifications can be further customized through Ribble's online bike builder tool. Riders can also opt for a custom paint job via Ribble's custom color scheme, and the bike that Ribble showed us has one of those lovely custom color schemes. As with any bike launches in these testing times, with stock and component shortages affecting the bike industry from top to bottom, one key question is, when will I actually be able to buy one? Ribble told BikeRadar that the Ultra SL and Ultra SLR can be pre-ordered now, with bikes beginning to ship in October 2021, depending on component availability. That's the new Ribble Ultra. Is this the future of aero road bikes? What do you think of the new Ultra handlebar? Comment below. And as always, don't forget to like this video, subscribe and click the little bell icon so that every time we upload a new video, you'll get a notification.